Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the record.
For the record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you. The record. Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the record.
The record. Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Orit Connor.
Good morning. Welcome to For the Record. Today being the 12th day of June 2017. I trust that everyone had an enjoyable weekend. Had a little rain yesterday. Welcome that as well, because the days are certainly getting hot, and we're only in June, as most people will say. Only in June it is so hot. I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman, and by extension For the Record, into your homes, into your vehicles as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work. If you're working in an office cubicle or if you're working in the outdoors. For the Record, a show produced by the staff and management of Radio Cayman, geared towards keeping you abreast of issues as they arise and play out on the local, regional, and international scene. I am your host, Orit Connor. My co-host in the studio with me this morning, Ms. Theresa Pitcairn, and you're welcome to join us on For the Record. You can join us by calling us on our toll-free number provided courtesy of Flo. That toll-free number is 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037 and 949-6990. Of course, if you don't like to talk on the telephone, then email us at For the Record. That is one word, For the Record, at CANDW.KY. What did we have go on this weekend? Lots of things in Cayman Islands. We had the Flowers Sea Swim, seemed to be well attended. Some top-class international swimmers came to the islands as well. In Jamaica, we had Usain Bolt and his farewell race over there in Jamaica as well. Big time as well. Bermuda, on some unfortunate news, former Minister of Tourism Sean Crockwell found dead at home, no foul play suspected. Quite a story in terms of his career, his life, transformations that he made, Ms. Theresa, and I forwarded you some stuff that I got from our CAB secretary here in the Cayman Islands, Mr. Samuel Rose, so he knows of my interest in Bermuda. Spent a few months over there and visited on several occasions, made some, really, really good friends in Bermuda as well, and I was shocked when he sent that to me, but, quite an interesting career Mr. Crockwell has.
Yeah, so thanks very much, OC, for having me this morning. It's always my privilege to be here on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday whenever I'm here. And we enjoy this kind of collaborative exchange,
Yes.
Not only during the radio show now, but post-radio shows, because we actually have conversations about current things that interest us both. Thanks also for the audience in allowing us to have this collaborative experience with you all as you call in, share your thoughts on current issues, past issues, anything that you're interested in, and hopefully that we can keep a sensible conversation going on to help our community as it evolves.
Well, sorry.
Yeah, no, the reason why the note on the former minister in Bermuda had an interest for me was because I also knew of an incident involving his cousin with respect to football, and I was only in the context. So when you sent it to me, I thought you knew of what transpired, because there was a matter involving his cousin, and I think the cousin was imprisoned. There was something that that was pretty damaging that occurred. And I said, well, I wonder how OC know that I actually know about this as well. But listening to you this morning, I suspect that was just one of those serendipitous moments. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, our audience certainly going to make sure that we keep the conversation going with them because we have 2 callers online already. So let's go to the phone lines then. First caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Morning.
sir.
Good morning, Mr. Conrad. This is, and the rest of your panel, this is Franklin Smith,
Yes, sir.
Come on, Mr. Smith.
the Mango Man.
Yes, yes.
I just want to say something on your radio this morning that occurred on my farm yesterday, 30 since 1982, and the first something like that happened. My brother and my worker were picking mangoes from the trees, and as usual, they take them out of the field, put them in the boxes, and put them in the vehicle. Some car drives up and snatches 4 50-pound boxes and sped off. And that's it. You know.
People are becoming so emboldened in the Cayman Islands now.
Yes. Yes. So, I just appeal to anyone with any information to help the police, because the police had come to, assist, but we weren't able to get the vehicle number or anything else, but it was a red car. So.
And what time of the day was it?
Around about 12, 1 o'clock, something like that.
Okay.
I mean, it's a terrible thing that see what people are doing, starting to do.
It is.
So I just thought I'd like to get that out there.
Yeah.
Anyone who knows of anyone, selling, in particular, Namdok mangoes, Jakarta mangoes, and Franca mangoes.
Mm-hmm. And especially if they're selling and that they don't have any land, that they're not farmers, because we know in Georgetown, for instance, there are people riding around on bicycles selling. They'll sell you pears, they'll sell you guineas, they'll sell you mangoes, and that they don't have a square inch of land to grow anything on. And those are the people that you don't want to support by buying anything from them.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But Mr. Franklin, this is symptomatic of a larger issue in Cayman. And I suspect, what are your views? It's one thing to take the mangoes, which, as we know, is just clearly wrong. But theft descending to that level now, and I would never have heard of something like that when I was growing up. What are your thoughts on how we start to take real steps to address the concerns?
I don't know, sweetheart. I don't know, Teresa, to be honest. But I just thought I would let it out there and let people know what's starting to take place in this country.
Yes.
Yeah. I really wish I had an answer for it.
Yep, it is, and we understand that there are certain pressures that may force people to do things, and that's really no excuse for what they do. But in this case, I can understand someone taking a few mangoes if they're hungry. But obviously, taking 4 or 5 crates of mangoes, they intend to do something else with them. They're not going to stand on the side of the road and give them out to people or know people who are needy and take them and say, here, I brought a few mangoes for you. They're going to try to make money. And 9 times out of 10, the money that they're going to make on that, they're going to take it and they're going to use it to buy drugs.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And anybody can tell you, if they come to my farm and they ask for mangoes, sir, I'm one of the first ones to give them. I give.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And but to see that they would just drive up, see the vehicle there. Yes, the doors are open because we have always been, doing that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We have never hid anything, never had talk until, I guess, yesterday changed things.
Yep.
So I just thought I would mention that on the radio.
Thank you. And any of our listeners, if you are aware of anything, then, alert the authorities to it. If you see something, say something.
Right.
Yes.
Right, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, caller. Next caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Yeah, good morning, O.C. How are you?
I'm
Mr.
fine.
Rita,
Morning. How are you
Hi,
doing?
Good morning.
Yeah, sad to know that Cayman is gone, the way it's gone. Years ago, growing up there, Mr. Risa and O.C., you know the difference. We didn't have all that kind of thing. We had a lot of love, and we shared everything that we had. Like Mr. Smith said, I know he gives people and stuff, but Cayman has gone so bad. We gone and we'll never return back to the way we are. But Mr. Connor, was just checking you. Did you get a chance to read that little book?
Sorry, caller, go ahead again. Can you repeat that, please?
No, I was wondering if you had got a chance to read the book that I gave you.
Yeah, actually, Miss Susan and I were going through it this morning because I got in here a little bit early. So Miss Susan and I were thumbing through it as well. The only downside to it is that you need almost like a magnifying glass to read it, and I can understand the restrictions that you had in terms of financing and printing and stuff like that, but that certainly won't deter anyone from reading it, and it's well put together. So Ms. Susan and I were discussing it this morning off the air, actually.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. But I mean, you can relate to everything inside it. I mean, you were one of them on the waterfront.
Oh yes, yes.
You were right there, and
yeah.
Let me tell you how Cayman has changed in there.
It has.
Cayman has changed. Can you believe it? But anyhow, I'll just left you with that, and I hope you can just put a little plug up there for me that anybody want to know where we came from.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people, Mr. Risa, is coming in Cayman and say this is paradise, but they don't know where we come from. Mr. McLean always saying this year was glory, but they don't know our story.
Yes.
Okay. We
Okay.
come from the way back, and now people can come and enjoy it better than we can. So I'll leave you with that. Have a good day.
Thank you very
You
much,
too.
caller. Thank you very much, caller, for that. Talking about our story, reading the Trade Winds newspaper again, thanks to the graciousness of Ms. Joellen Thompson. I think we have, Ms. Susan, was it 85? 97 copies of the Trade Winds newspaper going back from 1964, 65 to 67. Mr. Willie Wood, I believe, was the correspondent for Borden Town and Savannah. Miss Rosedine was Savannah as well, Rosedine Jackson. And they talked about the rain, so much rain there. Of course, when it was dry, they complained that it was dry. We needed the rain. Of course, when they got the rain, then they had a difficulty with the fogging, no fogging and stuff like that. So many mosquitoes and everything. There were complaints about the Savannah school because it had wooden windows in it. And when the rain came down and the mosquitoes, they had to close the windows and the doors. So there was complete darkness inside. They couldn't really teach. So those are some of the issues that those outlying districts, as well as areas of Georgetown, encountered, because at that time electricity hadn't moved to Borden Town yet. I think it was there in this mid-60s, 65 onward, that they then started to get electricity in those other districts as well. So those people went through a heck, of a lot in terms of having to deal with the elements, at that point in time.
Can you imagine how hot it was in that room?
Can you imagine? Yes,
Yeah,
yes. Yes.
I know that stuff like that tend to deter kids from learning as well. But I mean, once you're determined to learn, and once you have teachers who are committed to ensuring that you learn things like that, maybe you don't take too much. It doesn't really hamper the learning experience. But I can just, as you were speaking, I'm just sitting down thinking, gee whiz, even in here with the AC on, I'm always hot. But can you imagine being cramped in a small environment with kids, no light coming in, trying to keep the mosquitoes outside, and then dealing with the heat as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Folks, I want to remind you that you're listening to For the Record. I'm your host, Stuart Connor. My co-host in the studio with me this morning, Miss Teresa Pitcairn. Dr. Steve Macfield will be with us hopefully on Friday because he's extremely busy at the moment. And then, of course, we're going to lose Miss Teresa for a few weeks, as well. Please stay tuned. For the Record, we'll be back shortly. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me this morning, my co-host, Miss Teresa Pitcairn. I want to go back to the Bermuda story about MP Mr. Sean Crockwell, who they found unresponsive in his home and was pronounced dead. And I just want to dwell on this story a little bit simply because during the course of our elections in last month, we had a varied number of candidates from various backgrounds and stuff like that. And sometimes there may have been references to a person's background. And just to show you what people can accomplish despite the fact that they may have had some misdirections in their lives. And the Royal Gazette has an article entitled "A Look Back at MP's Accomplished Career," and it talks about the fact that he was born on the 30th of March, 1970. As a child, he attended the Bermuda Institute Seventh-day Adventist School from kindergarten through grade 12, graduated from Oakwood University in Alabama, the United States, with a Bachelor of Arts in History and Political Science in 1995. In February of 1996, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison for stealing $600,000 worth of heroin from a court safe while he was working as a Supreme Court clerk. While incarcerated, he earned his Bachelor of Laws degrees from the University of London in 2000, a postgraduate program with De Montfort University in Leicester. How do you pronounce that? Leicester. In Leicester, England. That followed afterwards. He became chairman of the United Bermuda Party following the general election in 2006. In December 18, 2007, he won the constituency in 19 Pembroke West, beating Progressive Labour Party candidate Walter Brown by 505 votes to 306 to 1. And look at those numbers, and we talk about our constituencies being too small. It works in Bermuda. Mr. Crockwell, along with other defecting members of the United Bermuda Party, founded the Bermuda Democratic Alliance in November of 2009. He was also called to the bar in 2009. In May of 2011, the Bermuda Democratic Alliance with the UBP formed the One Bermuda Alliance, which is now the governing party in Bermuda, the One Bermuda Alliance. In December of 2012, he defeated Charles Swan in constituency 31, Southampton West Central, and was named Minister for Tourism, Development and Transport by then Premier Craig Cannoner, after the One Bermuda Alliance captured 19 of 36 seats in the House of Assembly in the general elections. He cited a loss of confidence in the One Bermuda Alliance under Michael Dunkley when he quit cabinet on March 16, 2016. He would later leave the party in July of that year. Now, bear in mind, he quit cabinet, quit a ministerial position, Minister of Tourism, and he quit that because of fundamental differences and ideological differences with his party. And then earlier this month, he revealed that he would vote against the government in a motion of no confidence that was set to take place last Friday. Parliament was dissolved when Mr. Dunkley announced on Thursday that the next general election would be held on July 18. So we're going to have a general election in July 18. This was done as a result of the government trying to avoid a no confidence vote in Parliament. And the reason for that was because they had a very thin majority in there. And the only reason that they had that majority was because Randall Horton, who belongs to the PLP, is the Speaker of the House. So we had I think it was Mr. Crockwell and Mark Pettingill who then became independent members as opposed to the members for One Bermuda Alliance. I will go on to read it earlier this month. Most recently, Mr. Crockwell was Director of Litigation at Chancery Legal, practicing civil and criminal litigation. Practice opened in September of 2016 with 6 lawyers, including Mark Pettingill, who I mentioned before. Prior to joining the firm, he was an associate at MJM in the litigation group. He also did volunteer work for organizations including the Parent Resource Institute for Drug Education, the Center for Alcohol and Drug Abuse Prevention and Youth Field. He had also taught GED at the Hamilton Seventh-day Adventist Church and spent 3 years running Work Incorporated to help ex-convicts return to the workplace. And I'm reading all of this just to show you that after some misdeeds in life, there is still a future. And Mr. Crockwell demonstrated and displayed that by giving back to his community after. So those of you here in the Cayman Islands who like to vilify people who what we call blackball them, and that blackballing comes back from our old seaman days when if you created problems on national bulk carriers and stuff like that, if you were a troublemaker, fighter and stuff like that, they call blackball you. That means that you couldn't get a job on any of national bulk carrier ships afterwards. So we have a tendency here to ostracize people, vilify them, blackball them because of some missteps in life. And we have to recognize that people can turn their lives completely around and become exceptional, productive members of society. And this is a testament to that. Bermuda has, a huge loss. They have just experienced a huge loss. And, any quick comments before the break, Ms. Theresa, on that?
No, well, your past then, doesn't necessarily dictate and drive your future.
Yes.
And I think also of the legislation that we have been considering for some time to wipe in people's past act clear certain things.
Mm-hmm. Actually, it was considered.
It's actually, I wasn't
there
sure
there
if
were
it was
some
passed.
issues with
Yeah.
it, but and I think possibly some more amendments or some amendments may have gone forward because some legislators had some concerns about it. But we can look that up and during the break and talk more about that.
Yeah. He seems to be a man that lived his truth, walked the walk and talked the talk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Folks, I want to remind you that you're listening to For the Record. I'm your host, Orit Connor. My co-host, Miss Theresa Pitcairn, is with me this morning. We're going to the news now. When we return, we will continue our conversation and we invite your calls to discuss whatever you may wish to discuss as well. Please stay tuned for The Record. We'll be back immediately after the news. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm your host, Art Connor. My co-host in the studio with me this morning, Miss Theresa Pitcairn. We've been discussing a few things before, talking about the situation in Bermuda, talking about persons being ostracized here in the Cayman Islands. And Miss Theresa, I know several persons who have an interest in the legislation that we spoke about before. I think it's called the Criminal Record Spent Convictions Law of 2016 that we mentioned, and it came into effect, I believe it was, October of 2016, as well. Some concerns had been raised in relation to this, that in some respects it assisted persons, and in other respects they were put through additional hoops when it came to spent convictions as well. You've had an opportunity to take a look at the legislation during the break, and anything that is quite glaring in the legislation.
To be honest, I wasn't looking so much at that, but I was trying to remember some of the concerns I know that I had, thinking that the rehabilitation here was a lot stricter than it is in the UK. For example, and if I'm not mistaken, and I'm actually pulling out my hair with this in trying to remember something that Peter Polak will have mentioned some time ago, and I'm having difficulty trying to pick up the article, but I know he said something to the effect that in the UK, the fines take a year before they are expunged and to clear someone's individual record. And this was at the time. While it takes some 5 years for us and a fine before it's erased in Cayman. And the Cayman prisoners will be on a license literally for the entire remainder of their sentence. Whereas in the UK, it only requires the prisoners to serve something like 3/4 of that sentence. So I know that Peter had some concerns, and Steve as well, because I've heard him, both of them, speak of this and speak to the level of disparities between what is legislated in the UK and what is legislated in Cayman. So those are some of the issues, and when you compare the two systems as well, prisoners in Cayman tend to serve prison imprisonment exceeding a year, and they would normally be eligible for some kind of conditional release in the United Kingdom. But clearly, I haven't had an opportunity to review the new legislation to see how well it addresses these concerns. But I know it was something that was important. One thought that I did have when you were speaking about it at the break was, now that cannabis is legalized on certain levels, what happens to the folks that are in prison on ganja-related convictions? Are we going to take another look at them to see how we address it? Because it really, really doesn't make that sense. And I'm only now thinking about it because you've raised this issue in the context of that, what happened to Sean in Bermuda. So I don't know if you know too much about it. Maybe for the next show we can prepare to talk a little bit about that.
Certainly, yes. Certainly as well. Now, did you get that copy of the Trade Winds newspaper? Did that come through yet?
Okay. The other thing too was training and rehabilitation, bringing people back into the community. I'm gonna look on my phone for it.
Well, we did have one of our one of our listeners.
It's coming through.
Last week sent us a message and saying that the government promised to find jobs to employ ex-convicts as well, and this person indicated that they were still having difficulties finding a job. They were involved in real estate and other issues and wanted to know, what government was going to do about that. We know, for instance, that we had a very progressive person who headed up environmental health several years ago, Mr. Walling Whitaker, who put to work many persons, who had criminal convictions, and a lot of them continue to work with environmental health up to this day and do an exceedingly, good job. So in addition to the persons who are employed, who are just quote unquote regular people, we have to place the focus also on those persons who have,
responsibility. But that comes back to the point that Gilbert raised while he was here on Friday about he was speaking in the context of leaders that we had in the past. And I was saying that, we have a very small crop of persons in our generation who have that kind of, I think the young man that's doing the filming talk about testicular fortitude. We seem to have lost a lot of our leaders that are like that. And now it would appear it depends on the personality of those in leadership. And I know what Wally did was a brilliant job with those folks as well. And someone who I'm sure he won't mind my calling his name. I've known him forever. He's been one of my best friends. We went to school together. Billy McLaughlin. Now, Billy is one of those eccentric guys. I mean, truly eccentric guys. But he's one of the most intelligent persons that I know. he too has managed to employ quite a number of persons that were incarcerated, and manages to do a very good job with them. They're involved with construction. Whenever I speak to him about how he's progressing with the folks that he has employed, he only has really good things to say about them. And maybe about a year ago, he and I had a conversation about, what does he do to incentivize them to continue to work with them. And he said, TDs, because that's what he calls me. He says, TDs, they're just like every one of us, like you and me. They just want a fair income that they can go home and take their family, take to their family and make sure that their family is taken care of. And once you treat people right, more than likely you're going to invite people who are going to want to work with you and do a really good job. So we have to find more creative ways, though, to perhaps not rely so much on the personality, but make sure that we have policies in place where a certain code or a certain type of behavior is expected from those in leadership.
Okay, I'd like to share some very sad news with our listening and viewing audience, and I've tried before mentioning this. I sought some evidence of some confirmation of it, and I have been reliably informed that the unfortunate passing of Mr. Mike Daniel Simmons
Really?
this morning, and our sympathies and our prayers go out to Mike's family. Quite a stalwart here in the Cayman Islands. Came here in the 50s, I think, sometime in the 50s, and made the Cayman Islands his home. And we're so sorry, to hear about his passing. Very close to Mike. We talked, quite a bit. Many times you heard me talk about things on here that he shared with me, about the Cayman Islands. He knew so much about this place. He went through a lot of trials and tribulations with us here in the Cayman Islands when he came to work here as well, and he certainly will be missed by all. Really sad to hear that this morning. We have one caller. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, O.C.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning to Miss Teresa.
Good morning.
O.C., just a little bit ago you spoke concerning when I'm going to say ex-prisoners come out, that they should something about getting them employed, something like this, right?
Yes.
Okay. This is what I got to say on that. Some of them only use it, whoever helped them to get out, because they do not stick to the work that they were supposedly supposed to be doing while they're out. Are you understanding what I'm saying?
This is when they put on work release, or are you talking about regular jobs after they are out?
After they're released.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I know of one instance that I could, but I'm not going to call any names, right? Mm-hmm. Yes. Came out. But they got to come out a couple of days. Whoever it is got to come out a couple of times to prove them that they can find work when they come out, right? So and they be taken back in the evenings up to the northward.
Yeah.
But then on the release now, only work 3 times and say can't handle it, and not been working since. And then wait a minute, one more thing.
Mm-hmm.
I may have to call you back on my other thought.
Okay, sure. Yeah. What the callers talk about, unfortunately, not everyone, we're going to have 100% rehabilitation or success rate in terms of persons coming out of prison. There are those who go in there because of mistakes that they've made. They understand the mistakes, they've learned from their mistakes, and they come and they walk a straight path after returning from prison. And then there are others who see it as a revolving door. They're in and they're out, and we have to be able to distinguish between the two. And you try your best to assist in all occasions. You try to assist them.
But remember also that many that are imprisoned are, yes, they were caught doing being engaged in criminal activities, but many also need mental help. And we didn't perform as well as we could in differentiating between folks that we imprison who need mental assistance, as opposed to people who are in there with genuine criminal intent and so on. And I'm not even sure if, even as we speak, that we've managed to separate those persons in our prisons. And I remember the last time I read something on this, there was some discussion in the newspaper to the extent that there wasn't sufficient monies budgeted, or we didn't have sufficient monies available to do stuff like that. But the truth is, we're all one on this little 2x4. That's what my mom used to call it. She didn't. Whenever she spoke of Cayman, she said, "Teresa, this is just a little 2x4, and we're all in this together." So I don't know.
Okay. I just want to, we have a caller, and we're going to go to a commercial break, so we're going to ask the caller to hold on, but I'm going to quickly read what someone sent to me last week. It says, "Morning, everyone. Respectfully, I need to ask our Premier when he will implement the jobs he promised to ex-cons. We have a family to support and deserve a second chance as well. In the past, our Premier McLaughlin mentioned that government will start to offer jobs to ex-cons, and they will be accommodated in the area department or department depending on their conviction." I'm not too certain what that means, but yes, depending on their conviction, they would, what they were convicted for, that would determine where they would be placed if they were working, for government as well. But we certainly want to encourage the private sector to do their part as well. And this person says that I'm well qualified Caymanian with a Bachelor of Arts degree, and also has experience in real estate, and we're really pleading, for a job, as well. So, there we go. Let's go to a commercial break. When we return, one caller on hold. Caller, please hang in there. Three callers, so please hang in there. We will be back shortly. Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. As promised, we're going straight to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record. Thanks for being so patient.
Good morning, OC. Good morning to Miss
Teresa.
Karen.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Teresa.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to pay tribute to the passing of a very important individual to our community, Mr. Simmons, Mike Simmons.
Yes.
Mike came here as another Caribbean person from Turks and Caicos Islands, and he became Caymanian. He loved these islands as they were his own, and he respected the people who he lived amongst. They also learned to love him and respect him. He was a significant contributor to not only infrastructure development, but also to the entire community on a whole, from a number of perspectives, including his involvement with the Lions Club, which, by the way, as president and as a lion, prominent lion, and I speak as a part of our service club community, Mike provided an innovative gift as a project one year that will not be surpassed by any other service club in the Cayman Islands. That was, he provided a home as a gift, not as a gift, but as a prize for anyone who participated in the raffle that year for Lions Club. Nobody has ever been able to do that. The value was tremendous because 100% of that came back to our community. Mike has also impacted our community by creating offspring, children who have been remarkable in their contribution as citizens to our country, every one of them. And he will be sadly missed. They will live on in him. Mike Simmons is one of us, has been one of us, and will never be forgotten.
Thank you very much, caller, for that. You echo the sentiments of many people here in the Cayman Islands. Thank you very much. Let's go to the next caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Yes, good morning to you all. This is Cresswell Powery.
Morning, Mr. Powery.
And I would like to second the remarks just made by the previous caller. I happen to know Mike Simmons personally, and these remarks are from me and my wife. And I got to know Mike quite a number of years ago, back in the 60s when I was a police officer, and then later on as an immigration officer. And I found him to be quite a gentleman, and he had outstanding work ethic, and he has contributed a lot to this economy. And the other point I would like to raise was when you're talking about the prisoners, being released. And last evening I had the privilege of having quite a discussion with a local contractor, and we brought up the topic of the prisoners, and especially those who are involved in the drug business or using drugs, which is a detriment to themselves. And he said that in his profession as a contractor, and he has employed a lot of these men, and he hasn't really found anyone that can work harder and more productive than these guys. The only problem is that they'll work a week or two and then they'll take a break. But as far as being productive, he has found just about everyone that he has employed, and he's employed quite a number of them, that they are real good workers. So it's an area that I have a lot of passion for, and I haven't used drugs, so I don't know. I can only talk about what I've seen happening as a result of drugs, but that's an area that I'm hoping that I'll be able to work along with the present government to try and encourage these young people, not only men but women, to get back to the old way of Cayman. I hate to hear people talking about Caymanians or lazy, because
me too.
Work is something that I have a passion for, and how is it that Caymanians have been, back 30, 40 years ago, people came from all over the world to look for Caymanian men to be seamen, and it was a place that time forgot. We were so forgotten that when the seamen sent their mail, instead of coming to Grand Cayman, it was sent to Grand Canyon. That was how much the world didn't know about us, but yet we were sought after, and then the women stayed back here and helped the country. So I'm hoping. Previous caller said earlier that he don't think there's much hope of getting back there. I believe with good encouragement and a few of us stepping forward and assisting and encouraging these people, we can certainly get back to some of the glory that Cayman was once known for.
Thanks, Mr. Cresswell. Do you think that and what I tend to notice among us is that we will make statements And what I'm about to say, I'm going to hope that you take it in the spirit in which I'm sharing it, because I'm not speaking to you personally. I'm speaking to us as Caymanians in general. We often speak about what we should do. We talk about and we have ideas about what we think is the correct approach. But when it comes to standing up and getting organized and sitting down and say, okay, we have 10 of us here, 15 of us here. Let us sit down and organize a plan, and we're going to have 5 areas, for example, that we might focus on. And we're going to try and do A, B, C, D by the end of 2017. I find that is something that we don't necessarily do. We'll speak to the issues, we'll talk about the issues, but when it comes to sitting down and organizing ourselves to get it done, we tend not to be so good at that. And I'll just comment on one other issue. When I was speaking to OC about the issue of marijuana, Section 14 of the new law actually provides that when you have minor offenses related to marijuana, and where you don't have any aggravating factors or features, the person can actually apply to the expungement board to have their criminal records reviewed and expunged. Okay. So I remembered it, but I wasn't sure, so I had to try and find it myself. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Mr. Cresswell, if what is it that hinders us from being proactive? And I hear this all the time. People will send me notes saying, let's do this, let's do that, let's do that. My response tends to be, tell me where to show up. And when you send that response about tell me where to show up, you don't get that kind of response that one would like. Okay, well, she's interested or that person is interested. What can we do now to follow up and make this a reality?
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
very quickly, caller, I'll give you an opportunity to answer that.
Yes, I would agree with that. Caymanians need to become more united, and as a matter of fact, I met Kenneth Ryan personally for the first time on Saturday morning, and I told him I wanted to make an appointment to come and see him, and so we can sit down and talk. I mean, even though I'm a resident of West Bay, the issue that we have is not a West Bay issue; it's a Grand Cayman Islands issue, and I would like to be able to get to meet representatives here in West Bay at least for West Bay South, and so that we can get something going while at the beginning of this administration, because people need help, and I feel like I can contribute something, and I'm willing to meet with anybody. I mean, I didn't particularly vote for those who are in office, but that once they're elected, they become my government, and it is my desire to see the best for the people of the Cayman Islands.
Okay, thank you very much, caller, for that. Thank you very much. Can we take one more call? We'll take one call before we go to the break. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, OC.
Good morning again.
Yes. I said I would call back on my other thought. Okay. My other thought have changed to more than one thought, but I am not going to go so long.
Okay.
The last caller spoke about construction, but what I had spoken about earlier wasn't construction, OC and Miss Teresa. Mm-hmm. It was gardening. Okay. Don't tell me that somebody can't handle to throw up a hedge, use a rake, or use a weed eater. Did that sound so hard?
No, not difficult at all.
And then another thing, some of them gets too used of the AC, which they didn't have out here. And if they had only taken up, if some of them had only taken up all of the chances that they had into Northwood, all the different courses and stuff there, maybe that they could get into an office job where they could get into AC. Are you following me?
Yep.
Yes, and I must go on now to say that about on my first call, it really slipped me a little bit to speak on Mr. Mike Simmons.
Okay.
I knew him personally, but when you said Michael, I think you said Michael.
Daniel.
Yeah. When you said and then said Simmons, I pictured him in front of me was himself and Miss Joyce Hilton. And I apologize for not for not sending my condolences
That's
to the family members of the Mr. Mike.
Yeah, that's okay. It's just breaking news. We just heard it. Thank you very much, caller, for that. We're going to take a commercial break now. I believe we have one caller still on, two callers on hold. Please hang tight. We will be with you as soon as we come back from this commercial break. Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. Straight to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning to you, Mr. O.C.
Good morning, sir.
Mr. Teresa.
Morning.
I would like to ask my condolences. Also, I didn't know until I heard someone call in a while ago. I think I know who that was.
Mm-hmm.
The first call about it. To Mike, I was very, very well acquainted with. So Mike Daniel K. Simmons, many people didn't know his real name was Daniel. And condolences to family and all the children, especially to Dr. Erica, the doctor who gave me so much real advice on skin problems and so forth. And I just, he was so man of the people. He everyone knew him, put it that way. It was one of the most well-known names for many, many years in Cayman. He also employed a lot of people, even sometimes when he really didn't need them, just so they would have a job. I remember that very well with Mike. And it's a great loss. I knew he wasn't well now for a while. And I hadn't seen him for possibly a year now, maybe. But, yes, it's just a great loss. I would like to ask a few questions, maybe you all, being the powerful intellectuals that you are, both of you. First of all, because I get asked questions a lot in my job by people, foreigners, and some of them are very astute, some are U.S. representatives, congressmen, sheriffs, FBI, even tax, IRS inspectors, everything. I met them all, I guess. Royal farmers, so forth. One asked me, first one I'd ask is, what is Cayman Finance? I know it's not a government company, or is it it's a private company? Is it just a group of the financial people get together and share a voice for them or something like that?
Okay.
The other question is this: if you can explain what Cayman Finance is, what they do, whether it's something similar.
Yeah, we got that one. Next one.
What is the Solicitor General's job and the Attorney General's job? In other words, what's the difference between the two posts? What's the difference between the two posts? And if you could tell me, do you remember when it was what election year it was that North Side and East End first became existent as mental health Mr. Steve McFeely as separate districts? They weren't on the first election list at all. And when they became multiple member districts, and then when they became single member, what year it was, if you can remember what I'm saying here.
All of those down, and what we know now we'll give you, and the rest we'll do some research on for you.
So I don't take up somebody else's time.
Thank you very much, caller.
Okay, I can tell you what the Cayman Finance mission statement is, only because I'm kind of familiar with that. And it says that its mission is to promote, protect, develop, and grow the Cayman Islands financial services industry through cooperation and engagement with domestic and international political leaders, regulators, organizations, and media to promote the integrity and transparency of the industry by legislative and regulatory enactment, and to encourage the sustainable growth of the industry through excellence, innovation, and balance. Excuse me a minute.
And they're not-for-profit organization as well. We'll take the other caller in the meantime. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning.
Good morning.
O.C.
Good morning, dear.
Good morning, Miss Teresa. So sad about Mike.
Yes.
O.C., what I call for, try to change the subject a little bit. We come into another end of year school term.
Mm-hmm.
And, the kids are going to be out as of the end of this month, July, and majority of August. I was just listening to the U.S. News a couple of weeks ago where they were trying to figure out what to do with the kids after the school is up for the summer, especially with their lunches. So they have came up that they're going to provide lunches for the kids while school is closed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is such a great idea because we need that here in Cayman as well for our children. They have the Bible studies programs. They have to pay to go to them. They got, I'm quite sure that...
There are some that are free too, though. There are some put on by government that are free?
I don't think they're fully free. I think if your child cannot afford to go, the government will pay for that child to go to that program for that day.
Mm-hmm.
But what I would like to, somebody says we could get together and do something for the kids for the summer in each district, and have a bus each district to take these kids to a location and pick up their lunch. And not to hang out there to play and carry on, but, pick up a lunch and take it back home and, enjoy it and so forth. And Teresa, I know you're very popular in the island, and OCU popular, and I just thought it's a good idea to try we could get some people together. I'm willing to help cook and help deliver it to wherever it has to go,
mm-hmm.
And we just need to do something for our kids in the summertime because a lot of kids are going to be here hungry and thirsty. Don't stick with no soda, just, water and a decent meal, for the day, So I just want to put that up there.
Okay, and it should be easier now. We have now 19 single-member constituencies. We have a representative for each.
Mm-hmm.
It gives us an opportunity then to concentrate on those constituencies, make sure that programs are put in place for those. So rather than having the whole of Georgetown, they can arrange something for Georgetown East, Georgetown North, Georgetown West, Central, and get those representatives involved in it as well. This is where sometimes that the smallness is going to make such a huge difference in terms of the convenience of being able to do things. Everyone has a stake, everyone has an interest in ensuring that that is done. So thank you very much, caller, for that. That's something that we're going to continue to push here, and I know that you will continue to push it as well. If you need to call in and remind people of it, please take the opportunity to do that through this medium here on For the Record as well. Let's go to the next caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Mr. O.C.
Good morning, ma'am.
And good morning to Miss Teresa. This
Good
is
morning.
Georgette Ebang.
Morning, Miss Georgette.
So very happy to hear Miss Teresa on again with you this morning.
Yes,
and I
ma'am.
trust that you, Mr. O.C., and you, Miss Teresa, all your family members are well.
Thank
Many
you.
I'm
thanks.
Trust
quite
for you.
grateful. I'm very, very grateful God gave me another day. But I have one, and I'm so glad to hear so many wonderful plans are being made, and I hope they will bear fruit, not just plans, but they will come to fruition. But I have one question, and it concerns the homeless people. Please listen carefully, and I always say it, and I mean it. Don't answer me until, and I hope I do get an answer. The other day on your program, Mr. Usia, and asked a question, and I still haven't gotten the answer. I hope I get an answer this morning.
Okay, and we'll give you an opportunity to ask that other question again if you want, Ms. Georgette. So if we missed it last week, that we can answer it again or attempt to.
People out there who are homeless on nights when it rains, it makes my heart very, very sad. I say, Lord, if they get wet, they'll dry out because they don't have proper places to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's thunder and then lightning, I say, dear Father in heaven, don't let them get struck by lightning. And I'll say this and then I'll leave you. Those people out there who are homeless, Mr. O.C. and Miss Teresa, it does not matter whether they are drug addicts, whether they were lazy people who lost their homes, or whether they were hard-working people who somehow, maybe the wife or the girlfriend or the husband, whatever, they lost their apartment or their house. And then there are people out there, I understand, who are mentally ill. But it does not matter what is wrong with every one of those people out there who are homeless. They are God's children, just like you, Miss Teresa, and your wonderful daughters, and I think you have a son too, and Mr. O.C., you and your children.
Yes, sir.
They were made, or they have been made in the image of the living God. And they should not, I emphasize it. At 89, I didn't dream I would live to see the day when a man had homeless people. Miss Teresa, and you might remember this word, you might have heard her grandmother say, couch. When night came, even if a person didn't have their own personal house, they could always find some family member or friend, as the saying goes, to couch, to find a little place to sleep. Nobody in my childhood days, in my grown-up days, ever slept outside.
Yes,
And
that's true.
not one of those people who ran, to my knowledge, if they did, I'm sorry, if they spoke about the homeless people, and I want to know what are their plans about the homeless people. And I thank you, Mr. O.C., for giving me this time, and I await answers from you, Miss Teresa, an answer from you, Miss Teresa, and one from you, Mr. O.C. I didn't intend to go on so long.
That's okay, Miss Georgia. That's fine.
Thank you very much, and God bless everyone on our island.
Thank you very much, Miss Georgia. We have some queries that have been raised by our callers, and we're going to try as best as we can to answer that when we return. We're going to headline news. When we return, for the record, we'll continue. Please stay tuned. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We have no calls at the moment. This gives us an opportunity to respond to the queries that were posed by our listeners. I think you want to expand a little bit on the issue of Cayman Finance, what it is all about as well, Ms. Teresa?
Yeah, so it's really an organization with professionals that represent the interest of the financial services. And as OC said, it's a company, it's a non-profit organization. And it's really good because what it does, it forms a interlocking relationship with our government. And, you know, that's also one of the reasons I would venture to say why the financial services industry has been so good, because of the level of communication between the two. And there is a symbiotic relationship that they have developed over the years. And they will provide government with their views on issues with respect to what is required for the continued success of the financial industry. Government will normally listen and have conversations. They will also make certain recommendations about legislation. And again, in my mind, they do a very good job of trying to ensure that our legislation, our industry, stays on top of the cutting edge of the industry. So one of the concerns I know people have had is that we haven't invested as much as we should have in Cayman Finance to make it as viable as it should be. And, so that is something I suspect that
but
the new minister...
Should it be incumbent on the government to do that or the private sector?
Well, there's that conversation that has been ongoing for quite some time. The Cayman Finance say that they don't receive enough, perhaps, financial contribution to make it as good as it should be. And sometimes
the entities that they represent out there are the ones that are making the big bucks.
But see, I'm only giving you the arguments, and people will determine where that falls. At the end of the day, their view is that without their performance on island, the government, the community, the economy wouldn't be as successful as it would be. So they feel
neither would they.
They think that government's not doing their fair share. You come in like Boss Hog now. You remember Dukes of Hazzard? Anyone in our listening audience remember Dukes of Hazzard, the little short guy?
Yes.
But anyway, that just came to mind. But yeah, that's the role that they play. With respect to the other question that was raised about the Solicitor General,
Right.
in general, you have a triumvirate with respect to legal services, at which the Attorney General sits at the very top of the triangle. He is responsible for legal affairs. He actually advises our government, the cabinet, and he is essentially has complete responsibility where our political legal matters are concerned. And I should say
that is created by our Constitution.
That's right, Section 56,
yes,
right.
Okay.
But that is separate and distinct, however, from the role that the judiciary play, where we have the judges and the Chief Justice, where the Chief Justice is actually responsible. So with the Attorney General, we have fallen under his administration is the Office of the Solicitor General and the Office of the DPP. The DPP is primarily responsible for all of the criminal proceedings
And
that
that's
we
Director
see.
of Public Prosecutions.
Right, right. And then the Solicitor General takes on more of the civil matters that we deal with. He or she is responsible for providing the kind of advice to the Attorney General that relates to civil litigious matters as well. But falling under that group is also the whole Law Reform Commission, the folks that are responsible for drafting our legislation, and the Attorney General has complete responsibility that this whole entity operates coherently, cohesively, and addresses the kind of issues that come before them. And you'll obviously have the Crown Prosecution being a part of the group. Primarily working with the DPP again.
Now, in other jurisdictions, our Attorney General would be the equivalent to, say, a Minister of Justice to a certain extent, despite the fact that because he's a part of cabinet. Who would be the equivalent of a Minister of Justice in an independent country?
You have some of the times you have a specific minister that is responsible for that with Home Affairs as well. We don't quite have that, but we have a separate Attorney General that is responsible for our cabinet and providing that kind of advice. Remember, too, we still have a dependent territory, so even the role that the Attorney General plays here is a little different from the role that the Attorney General might play in a republic like the United States. So it's slightly different. Yeah.
And then also we should make a distinction between the fact that while the Attorney General is the legal advisor to the government of the Cayman Islands, that's the cabinet, and of course the governor presides over cabinet. Our Attorney General does not necessarily provide advice to the governor in her capacity as governor. She would normally seek that advice from the UK legal advisors for the Foreign and Commonwealth Office.
That's right, because when you talk about legal advice to government, it doesn't contemplate the governor being a part of that government. Yeah.
Right, yes. Thank you very much for that. We have one caller, but let's go to Ms. George because we want to ensure that we answer Ms. Georgette's question. Now, we keep hearing about homeless people, and there's no reason to doubt that we have homeless people here in the Cayman Islands. What we need to do is they need to be identified. We need to quantify it as well, and then address it. Now, there are some jurisdictions where you have civil society who go out there and try to help homeless people. There are people who are homeless and they want to remain in that situation. They feel their comfort in that situation. There are others who find themselves there because of unfortunate circumstances and would like to get out of it. For those who want to remain in there, you have civic groups that will go and will provide food for them. When there are inclement conditions, for instance, when you have severe swings in weather in the United States, Canada, places like that where you have your winters and your summers, they will provide for it. We see even in Bermuda, homeless people out there, and they go out and they assist it. But we need to quantify it. We keep hearing about it. We need to get someone from social services, children and family services, or otherwise talk to them to find out where they're at with this. Do they have the information that is necessary? But it is something that should not be that challenging for us here in the Cayman Islands?
I tend to measure how successful we are in terms of how we relate to those folks that and I hate saying those folks, our people.
Yes.
I mean, let's embrace each one of them. It's not that difficult. When I know, for example, when I go to Hurley's or to Kirk's in particular, I tend to go to Kirk's for some of the things. When I see someone, even if I don't know that person, or indeed when I'm driving by Burger King and there's usually a young man that's there, and he will ask for something, and the kids will always ask me, "Mom, why do you know him?" and so on. And I says, I don't need to know someone to know when they're hungry. And rather than, and certainly when I'm at Kirk's, and some that I do know from way back when, I will have that conversation and I'll say, I'm not going to give you any money, but I'll go and buy you something to eat. And that's what I tend to do. Now, in the past, I used to express the concerns that I had to social services. I don't do that anymore. I just do my part when I'm there on the scene. Yeah.
Okay, we have two callers. Let's go to the phone lines. First caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Morning, Mr. Ossie and Ms. Teresa.
Morning.
I just have a few comments in terms of the marijuana issue and productivity. It seems that despite what other people may say about people being lazy and unproductive, you will be intrigued to know that there are people that are actually very productive when it comes to that industry. Example, Colorado and their economy, which has grossed probably between, I think it's 50 million or 70 million last year from the marijuana industry. It has also helped in the medicinal and pharmaceutical industry when it comes to various issues that people have with either respiratory, orally, or eye issues. Now, that said, I have a query in terms of how much money do you think actually came from Colorado to the Cayman Islands with our whole finance structure? And on top of that, I just feel that we really have a whole issue of discrimination that we're actually not addressing. We have imprisoned our those that use and those that probably have shipped marijuana to the island, but we have not addressed the issue of, once a drug it, always a drug it. But perhaps these druggies are in a position of making an economic contribution to these islands with the marijuana industry.
Is our economy all that bad that we really need to turn to the supply and production of marijuana for it? That's one option. That's an option that some countries have, or it may be not an option for some countries, but we have other options here in the Cayman Islands. Do we really need to go to that? Yes, I can understand decriminalizing the use of marijuana because we ostracize so many people in our society simply because of the use of it. But do we need to go into an industry?
My final point would be, and that's credible what you're saying, because my final thought would have to be, we have already created a social problem with these incarcerated men and women.
Yes.
We can perhaps create a solution now with these people that we basically have ostracized or discriminated against, and we can probably create an industry for these people to have work and make a contribution to their own lives and their family structure.
Yep. Thank you very much, caller. A very good point for that. But my caveat to what he just said, the last portion there, is that we should find that in another industry rather than either the production and sale of it. I have no problem with the use of marijuana for medicinal purposes, even recreational use to a certain extent. But to get into the business of producing and selling, I don't think that we want to go down that slippery slope yet. We need to take some small incremental steps before we reach that stage here in the Cayman Islands. And what I was remarking over the weekend about was that we're seeing the emergence of harder drugs in the Cayman Islands now. Heroin. I think there was one report on the weekend about heroin. We know we have cocaine here and everything else. And what we have to look at is we have to question the usage of that. Is it, local usage, or does the increase in usage have to do with the increase in work permit holders here in the Cayman Islands? Because we get all and sundry here, and they come with their problems when they come as well. That police clearance certificate doesn't necessarily mean that the person does not have problems, as well. So we want to give some thought to that also. We're going to take a commercial break. When we return, we have one caller on hold. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly. Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. Going straight to the phone lines. Caller, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Reese, and good morning, OC.
Good morning.
How are both of you?
We're fine.
Good, thanks.
Okay, good. Thanks. You know what Miss Georgette talks about is absolutely true, OC. OC and Mr. Isa, whenever you have the time, I know you ride a lot, OC, you just ride down here in West Bay and go by the West Bay Public Beach and Foster's Supermarket. Across from Foster's Supermarket, right by what we call Mr. Benson's hardware store, there's a lady, a grown woman, I guess, I know her because I went to school with her. Between 66 and 68, she has been living on Mr. Benson's brother's front porch, for the last 3 years, 2 to 3 years. She has a big family, a huge family, with homes and apartments. The girl is well educated, but she has a mental problem. Around Foster's, every day, there's someone begging. A lot of them is mental. Some of them are mental from drugs. Some of them I know, I have worked with, but through politicians saying, come, I have a 25, I have a 50, I have whatever to give them. They have become lazy, they don't search for jobs, and they some of them can hold jobs. Then you go further down on the West Bay Public Beach, and you'll find that we have 2 cabanas. And anytime from 9 o'clock until 12 o'clock, I'm going to say 1 o'clock in the morning, the next morning, because I've been out.
So caller, what is the answer? What is the answer to the problems? How do we solve it?
Social services is overwhelmed. They're overburdened. Their families receive money for some of those people, and the families spend these people's money. The problem is we need field workers that can get the check on these things and then report back.
Do we need to create some form of institution where these people can be housed and can be supervised?
Yes, sir.
Because if government is giving the money to the families, but the families are misappropriating those funds, for themselves, then it would seem cheaper and more efficient for government to simply create an environment where they can be housed, they can be taken care of, and that money then is well spent directly on them. Are you there, caller?
If the social services don't have field workers and people to report back to them, because like I tell you, they're overwhelmed. Just a few of them cannot take care of the problem alone in West Bay. What they told me, 64% is West Bay people that is in need, and some of them are mental and some of them are drug mental, and I've repeated that before. Is 64% of what is given to the social services and needs assessment is for down here in West Bay. I just want for the politicians to just have a look. People like you that I know rides for the exercise, just come down and have a look. It's a sad case here. The cabanas, they sleep under the cabanas all the time, and then the next day is the same thing over and over. People go and give them food, but that is not the solution.
Okay, hopefully, caller, we will see some changes with the administration now that those things have been resoundingly brought to the fore during the election campaign and everything else. We're going to ask you to leave us there, though, because we have two more callers and we have a limited amount of time left because we have to go off the air.
Thank you, though, for listening.
Thank you very much. Too. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record. Good morning. Good morning.
Hello, good morning again. We'll see you, Mr. Reese. Am I on?
Yes, you are.
Thank you for answering the questions there about the Solicitor General and the Attorney General. I had thought, with my little limited knowledge, that the Solicitor General does deal more with civil matters and litigation, but it's important what you're saying on
she did mention civil. Yeah, she did mention
because civil. Yes, that's what I thought too. So, but that I get it, confirmed by someone with knowledge.
She also deals with the he or she, I think, also deals with the portfolio of chief officer under the Public Service Management Law.
Yes, because a lot of people are under the misguided or misguided impression that Attorney General here in Cayman is similar to the Attorney General in the United States. A completely different position. But anyhow, that be the case. What that lady was just saying, I know and recognize the what she's talking about. I live quite near there, so I know exactly what. So, 47 years I've gone, I've been in West Bay, living in West Bay. I've noticed the drastic change, but it's all over now, and it can only get worse. I'm a realist. Because if it's getting worse...
Get worse if we don't address it, if we don't seek to address the issue.
Thing is, I'm just going to say this. Hang up. I have said from a long time ago, yes, the field workers, it takes money, and that they should have them. We must implement a properly funded welfare system. We have, 6,000 people on a system.
Caller, I'm going to ask you to be quick because we have 4 minutes and we have one caller. This is your second call.
And we must look at it as 15,000 in the next 5 years. Also, I'm hearing people saying that our MLAs will be more accountable now. I don't think that's the proper way to put it. The proper way to put it, in my opinion, is that they will be accountable to less people. They were always accountable to people, but now they'll be accountable to less people with 19 districts and much less people to be held accountable to.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, caller. Accountable, but at the same time, it means that they will be accessible also to less people. So they will be they won't have as many demands. They won't have the whole whatever electorate of Georgetown coming upon them, just their constituency. There are pluses and minuses in this. Give it a chance to work, and like I said before, it's going to be the best thing next to Norberg sliced bread when we finish with all of this. Last caller. Two final callers. Very brief, very short. First caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
That's like slightly disagree with your OC on saying that we don't need to create another leg in the economy when it comes to cannabis. Like they said, there is benefits to it. You acknowledge that, and I agree with you on that.
Okay.
However, Cayman does have a major trade deficit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
we've always had that.
Yeah, we always had that, and it makes no sense for us to increase that by purchasing cannabis from overseas when it can clearly be easily grown here. Mm-hmm. It would also create employment, not only in initial sales and construction of fences, buildings, and then ongoing and growing and then processing. The fact is, it's already here, and the consumption is very large, and everyone is aware of that. Mm-hmm. The government collects zero revenue on the marijuana that's smuggled in. There's no duty on that, right? And those boats that are coming with this marijuana is also bringing guns and bringing cocaine. Mm-hmm. If this was grown here by reputable business people, we could, like, say, not only create employment, but the government would get revenue and be less need for these boats to be coming. Mm-hmm. The same could be said about numbers. It makes no sense to say that we shouldn't allow numbers. Everybody knows that someone that sells it, and the same thing you could license stores or liquor stores or food stores or whatever to simply have a little booth, like kind of similar like the Lotto in the States, and we sell these things, and whatever 90% of the revenue could go to the government. So these things are already here, and if they try to hide our heads in the sand and dismiss them, it's major money. You're talking millions and millions of dollars that could be generated from both of these. I mean, some people say that there's over $2 million on a Sunday. And I say it like this. There's two people that doesn't want these things legal. It's obviously some of the people in the church, and there's also the people who actually sell it illegally. Mm-hmm. No, they don't want it legal because they would be out of business.
Yeah.
So we need to look at these and like I say, have it regulated. By growing it here, we can, test it. We can ensure the quality of it, the consistency. It could be properly labeled, the strength and stuff like that. We could have the different strains. Some wake you up, and some make it help you to sleep. So right now, who knows what they're buying? There could be all kind of chemicals, and it often is rat poison. And
can I ask you to wrap up for us, Carl, please?
And stuff like that. And that's one of the things that have contributed to a lot of the problems that people have. Mm-hmm. So we need it to be tested and grown here. And I think that the government hopefully will take that on board this year and go to additional and allow not only import, but also allow export, because that's another part of it. Mm-hmm. We don't have to just grow for domestic consumption. We could potentially grow and supply other parts of the world, and leave it up to business people. Let the government create the policies and framework around it, and let's get this thing going.
Thank you very much, caller, for that. Thank you very much. There's many hurdles to cross before we reach that point, though. Final call. Good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, guys. I'm gonna touch on two. Employment for who? Because it ain't gonna be nobody around here got enough experience for that one. But I'll leave you on that marijuana issue there. The other one, though, with the homeless situation. Listen, we've always had homeless people, right? And it's only gonna get worse. That's life, because we're a globalized community, and somebody has to lose the race. But building a facility to house these individuals and help these individuals is a good thing, as long as it's done with consideration for kindness involved. Because some of these institutions, once they get going, it's all whistles and hallelujahs and all that, and then it just gets into a routine, and then the people who are put in those institutions suffer. So as long as it's done in a humane way, it's a good thing. But if it's just in a business way, I ain't down with it. I'd rather see them walking free on the road, even though that disturbs a lot of people. And those people who are disturbed by seeing them, why you don't get out there and go and say hello and carry them some food and carry them some clothes and try to assist them? I'll leave you there.
Thank you very much, caller, for that. Thank you very much. Good point. Yeah.
I beg to disagree,
don't leave it all
though,
to government.
That we've always had homelessness. When
No,
I grew up, there was zero.
Yes.
We had people that had challenges, but they were always taken care of.
By their families.
Yeah,
Yes.
always.
Yeah. One message that we received says, Cayman Finance is just like the Chamber of Commerce or any other corporate lobby group. It is not incumbent on government to fund their activities. Please remember, governments do not make money. They only receive revenue by way of taxes. These same financial companies would have to be taxed even more through fees or otherwise if government had to subsidize their activities. The only alternative would be to tax the poor to subsidize Cayman Finance, which would be completely unacceptable. Each lobby group must fund their own activities without seeking funds from government.
Yeah, and I've heard that view as well.
Yes.
But because I know I didn't want to give a view one way or the other, I just put the facts out there. We hear about that. But OC, before I get flogged.
Yes, you have to tell us what's happening in Bordentown.
That's right. So, we have the Queen's birthday coming up on Monday, the 19th.
Yes.
BTers are going to have a nice fete. In fact, this is being organized by the Bordentown Heritage Committee, and it's going to be a fete that starts at 10 in the morning, ends at 6 in the afternoon. You're going to have food galore, and they're going to have shows and stuff where you can have I think they're going to do something to do with hats as well, fancy hat and dress parade and so on. But so it's
Sounds
going
like
to
a
be
garden party almost.
and we're good. We're good.
Yes,
we're good.
I used to love the Bordentown garden party.
We're the best, and it's going to be at the Harry McCoy Senior Park, down behind Gun Square in Bordentown. Again, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday, Queen's birthday, and if you need some of the trips, you're all going to get $1,500 if you get the first prize, and you can get a little trip for two if you get the third prize. But the people that you have to contact is usually Miss Mary, Miss Mary Lawrence, Miss Betty Wood, Agnes McCoy, and Ellen Eden. And Ellen, you'll forgive me with this because, I've got you on the back of my brain from the time I was driving here this morning, knowing that I forgot the flyer. Miss Mary's number, if you don't mind, is 924-2406. Miss Betty's number is 916-4076. Miss Agnes's number is 916-3646. And Miss Ellen's number is 925-5600. And I'll repeat, Miss Ellen, 925-5600, and Miss Mary, 924-2406. So Miss Mary, Miss Ellen, and don't hold me up, I've done my part.
Well, just pass that information on to me as well so that I can repeat it on Wednesday and then on Friday as well, because we know that you're going to be traveling, so you won't be here after today for a couple of weeks as well. And we want to wish you safe travels during your sojourn as well. Huh?
Yeah, thanks very much.
Okay.
It'll be a new experience.
Folks, I want to thank you. Well, first of all, I want to say to the Moxham family, I know that Lennox listens over in the BRAC. I need someone to send me their email address. I have one of the stories here in the Trade Winds newspaper, the 19th of June, 1967. And it's a story about Mr. Rupert Moxham and Mr. Teppo Turin. When it comes, it says they're through. Turin Moxham team finishes North Sound Canal. A great story here. Those of you, do you remember the name of Mr. Rupert Moxham's bakery? It was called the Dandy Bakery at the time. He eventually closed that down and got into heavy equipment and everything else. But I'd like to send you a copy of the Trade Winds of the 19th of June, 1967 with this story. for the Moxham family. So someone send me an email address that I can send it to you, or if more of you want it, send me an email address. You can send that to fortherecord@candw.ky. If I don't read it today, I will read it on Wednesday and forward a copy of the trade winds on to you. Folks, I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman, and by extension For the Record, into your homes, into your vehicles as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or if you're working in the outdoors. I also want to remind you that we are our brothers and our sisters keepers. There is always someone out there who is less fortunate than we are, and I ask you to extend a helping hand to them. If you can't do that, then I suggest you donate to a worthy charity, because we always want to consider those who need, not necessarily those who want. And by what we're hearing, there are many people who need, some people who need, who find themselves homeless, some who want help, some who need help, and we want to try to help them as well. I also want to continue to extend our condolences here on Radio Cayman and throughout the island to the family of the late Mike Daniel Simmons. He will be sorely missed. I will talk more about that on Wednesday. I have had so many fond memories and experiences with Mr. Mike Simmons as well, and I'd like to share those with you. I want to continue to encourage you to continue to listen to your radio station, Radio Cayman. John Sterling, Dwayne Banks at 12 noon for Talk Today. Have a great day, and as usual, we ask the good Lord to bless these three wonderful, beautiful Cayman Islands.
Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record.